Find me an angel.
You're listening to the Life After Loss podcast. This show is a safe place for angel moms and angel dads who have lost a child. It's a safe place to share, cry, celebrate, and connect to a community of parents who have experienced grief and gotten through it. Here's your host, Darcea Handy.
Angel moms and dads and everyone who's joining us for this episode of the Life After Loss podcast from all over the world. Thank you for joining us. I certainly do appreciate all of your support, and I appreciate all the questions and all the DMs that everyone's been sending me. Now, today's something I'm going to talk about. I've gotten a lot of questions on this. So I said, okay, I do need to discuss this because I've discussed it separately for women and for men. I'm talking about surviving the loss as a couple, grieving as parents. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I told the fathers how to take care of their wives because there's a different type of grief that women feel. A couple of weeks ago, I also talked to the moms, angel moms, and I told you how to look out for your husbands and your spouses because there's a different type of grief. But today I want to talk about surviving as a couple. Now, I say that because oftentimes we get really close at the beginning of the loss. When you're planning the funeral or you're having to tell family members that the pregnancy had to be ended or you had a miscarriage or a stillborn, you're right there for each other. You're there for each other through all of the rituals of the funeral, letting the parents know, making the big decisions. You're right there together. You're there for company. You are the perfect couple. And I'm talking about husbands and wives, partners, domestic partners, everything. You're there. Everybody is like, okay, they're going to make it through this because they are together and we see it. When the phone stops ringing, when the food stops being delivered to the door, my family members and your church members, when you're at night, when you're getting ready to go to bed, and it's just the two of you, and there's no noise, there's no television, there's no distraction, there's no company, and you're thinking, what do you do? What do you do when in your heart of hearts, you feel like you are subconsciously blaming the other person, or you think that person is blaming you? When you're the wife who miscarried or lost a baby shortly after birth or stillborn, and you're thinking, he thinks this is my fault. He's not touching me anymore because he doesn't love me anymore. He think I did this on purpose. What happens when you're the husband and you're laying in the bed and you're saying, oh, she's so emotional. I don't even want to bother her right now. I don't know what to say to her. I'm not going to touch her. I'm just going to, let her have her space. You both think that you're doing what's best, but you're not. You all have to grieve together. Don't isolate yourselves from one another. I know sometimes fathers do grieve differently. There might be things that they start doing, they might do projects around the house, and that's fine. Mothers, we grieve differently because we lost a body and they lost a baby. But don't separate yourselves from each other. And I'll tell you this, I know when it happened in my household, things were different. Because when I lost my son, my husband started going upstairs in his office a lot. I was very emotional, obviously. I was depressed, I was sad, I was angry, I was frustrated. All of those stages of grief that everyone talks about, right? Well, they don't always hit in order. But he went upstairs a lot because we just weren't communicating effectively. I felt like he wasn't sensitive to me, and he just felt like, let me just give her some space. And it caused a rip. Don't separate yourselves from one another because you're going to get yourselves involved in the separate things that you're doing when you need to be. together. Now, allow yourselves to feel what you're feeling, but you have to do things as a couple to make your marriage work. For your marriage to sustain this loss, you have to be together and on the same page. Now, that doesn't mean that your stages of grief are going to be the same. No. But what it means is you've got to take care of each other. You've got to check in on each other. You know what? When the phone stops ringing and no one's delivering food at the door any longer, and you're in bed, instead of just turning over or ignoring one another, just, hey, how are you doing tonight? Oh, okay. I'm fine. Oh, okay, good. How are you doing? Okay. Well, I'm just a little sleepy, so I'm going to bed a little early. That's okay, or whatever. Or even, ladies, if you feel like your husband is being distant, just put your arm around him in the bed, and you never know, that might just spark something. He's like, okay, she's okay. Same for your husband. Don't get angry if he's doing something else and he's doing so many projects, and you might want to feel like calling people on the phone and saying he's just not paying attention to me. He doesn't even care, but he's busying himself. Stop him. How are you? How are you really? You don't have to protect me. Please tell me how you're feeling, because I'm here for you just like you're here for me. Allow yourselves to grieve and feel what you're going to feel. Be aware of each other's feelings. Awareness is so important. Be aware of those times when you might be a little bit more emotional. One of you might be more emotional on one day than another day. Let's say in my situation, we lost our son. So sometimes certain types of sporting events would be very difficult for us, because I'm not saying that girls can't play sports, but there are certain things like hockey, certain things that my husband wanted for his son. So he was upset and he was depressed. And that hurt me because I felt like I caused it. Okay, he's mad at me because I lost the baby. That wasn't the case. We had to talk about it. At one time, I was upset and angry with him because I felt like he wasn't grieving. I was like, okay, he cried at the funeral, and sometimes he's angry, but he's upstairs all the time, and he's just not around me. Then one day, my daughter comes in the house. She was a bit older, years later. She's probably 7 or 8, and she comes in the house and she's crying. I'm like, what's going on? And she said, well, Daddy is really upset. Daddy was crying really bad today. And I was like, why? And she said, well, we went to visit my baby brother. They had gone to Forest Park, where Aiden is buried, and he had a very difficult time. Now, of course, I was angry. I was like, why would you take her? But it let me know that he was grieving. It let me know that he was hurting. And I had to change the way I was talking to him because I didn't see it, I didn't recognize it. And it's not going to come overnight. This is a process. You are healing from damaged emotions. You are healing. You are recovering from something so traumatic you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. And parents, that takes time. Now, people say, oh, time heals all wounds. Everything happens for a reason and time heals all wounds. I won't say that it's going to 100% heal you, but you will learn how to live with it. That's what time will do for you. Time will allow you to live with what you're feeling. Now, another thing I will tell you is to seek counseling together as a couple. Now, if you have to seek counseling individually, that's fine, but also seek counseling as a couple, because you need a mediator. Sometimes you need someone to say, okay, I'm the mediator, so please tell me how you're doing. Tell me how you're feeling. Okay. And you tell me how you're doing. Tell me how you're feeling. And then, okay, what did you hear him say? And what did you hear her say? That is something that I actually implemented. I started speaking And then I would say, okay, what did I just say to you? Can you paraphrase what I just said? It wasn't anything insulting. It was just to see if he comprehended what I was trying to get across to him, to let him know how I felt. There were times where I'm not going to say, no, I didn't want my husband to touch me because I didn't want to be with him. But of course, I was afraid of pregnancy after the loss. I was scared. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want this to happen again. You never know what the other person is going through if you don't communicate with them. You all are surviving as a couple. You got to survive this loss the best way you can. And it starts with communication. Everything starts with communication. Go to your follow-up visits together if you can. Take paternity leave along with maternity leave. You need that time to grieve. Both of you, not just one of you, both of you. People have inboxed me and DM'd me because they're like, oh, this just ruined our marriage. We just, we're going to divorce. This just ruined our marriage. Let me say this. I know sometimes people think babies will save a marriage. It depends on what condition your marriage was in. I don't necessarily believe that a child will save a marriage, and I don't necessarily believe that a child will end a marriage between adults, not adult children, little small babies and toddlers and stuff. It's communication between the two of you. Acknowledge each other's pain. Be aware of how each other are feeling. You know your spouse. If they're acting different, they're not the same, find out what's going on with them. Don't let them sit in the corner and soak alone. Ask questions. You can ask something simple as, what did you eat for lunch today? And they say, what? Either one of you ask that person, what did you eat for lunch today? Well, you know why I asked that question? Because it's not a yes or no question. It's a question that's going to allow for dialogue and communication. And it's a question that's also going to let the other person know I care about you because I want to know. They might even get a chuckle out of it. They may even say, "Hey, you never asked me that before." Open those lines of communication the best way that you can. Let each other know that you are there for one another. You're aware of the feelings. Allow each other to feel what you're going to feel. Acknowledge that you're grieving. You might be in different stages, but you're grieving. You have to adjust some things in your life. Maybe it's time you spend in the office or on the computer or at the store, whatever it is, you may have to adjust your schedule and spend more time together. And you're just going to have to integrate what you're feeling and the new normal into your everyday life. That child that you lost, that's a hole. Children don't replace children. So your new normal is going to become adjusting your life to integrate that loss into your family as a couple and healing from it. Angel Mom's dad, you are in this together. Hold each other's hand, stand by each other's side. When he's weak, lift him up. When she's weak, lift her up. Don't blame each other. Don't guilt each other. And please don't start fighting with each other. Arguments may happen. Find out the root cause of it. One thing I have to say, I've noticed that sometimes people, I have to say this, they'll try to replace people with things. That never works. There's never enough material items that can replace a broken heart. You start buying things, buying a handbag here, shoes there, whatever you're buying for each other because, oh, this is going to cheer you up. It'll cheer you up for a moment, and then it's when the novelty wears off, you're back to feeling the way you felt. Get deep inside of yourselves. Get deep down to that pain where it's ugly, dirty, nasty, crying, snot, tears laid out, and share that with one another. Grab each other, hold on to each other, and love on one another. And I got you, and we're going to get through this together. You don't have to put a show on for each other. Take the mask off when everybody leaves. Be in your purest, rarest form for one another and heal together. The only way you can do it is with communication. Nobody else is going to do it for you. A therapist can help, but they're not in the bed with you at night. They're not in your home all day and tomorrow. Do it for yourselves. Angel moms and dads, I didn't want to make this podcast too long, but I just had to come to you all about that. When you are grieving the loss of your child as parents, you've got to grieve together. You're going to have your moments of independent sadness, but you got to hold each other down because that's the way you're going to heal together. So with that, Angel moms and dads, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. And for people who are watching all over the world, everyone, please stay safe everywhere that you are. And like I always say, take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time.
You've been listening to Life After Loss with your host, Darcea Handy. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast for new episodes every Wednesday. For more on this program, log on to ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.